So in this video, I'm going to explain why you should support the tube drivers going on strike. This video will be split into 3 segments. What are the demands they are making, why you should support the strike, and the third segment is why we need unions. So, what are the RMT demanding from Transport for London? The union is calling for a reduction in hours from 35 hours per week to 32 hours over 4 days. Now, this is due to tiredness and fatigue. They also want increased pay, which is part of the ongoing negotiations. However, the media have misrepresented and at times outright lied about their demands. The Telegraph claims 2-for-1 entry to Legoland among unions' tube strike demands. The union's list of demands includes access to a travel card, which also gives its holders ticket deals at theme parks around the country. So this is a complete lie. These are not part of the negotiations, as the RMT confirmed. When shown the Telegraph article, RMT lead negotiator Jared Wood reportedly laughed out loud. He told The Standard, "The idea that this is any part of industrial negotiations is complete nonsense. We were completely unaware of that provision in the rail card benefit scheme. It's something the rail travel scheme appeared to have agreed with certain attraction operators. It's not part of the dispute. It's not something we have demanded." Another demand for a 75% discount on fares for TfL workers has also been misrepresented.
They're asking for pay rise as well, which is absurd. Plus 75% off travel, just like those who work for National Rail. Come on, they're having a laugh, aren't they?
The truth is that the 75% discount was already agreed a while back, but management have gone back on their word and are trying to remove it. So this isn't a new demand from the RMT in these negotiations. It was a previously agreed benefit. So why should you support this strike? As I already mentioned, the core of the strike is about reducing the working week to combat tiredness and fatigue. Now, this may sound like a small issue, but in reality, a driver who isn't properly rested can be incredibly dangerous. This story from a couple of years ago demonstrates this. Bus driver who fell asleep and crashed into 6 cars had been working 14-hour days. Jonathan Hastings, 38, was driving a bus containing 3 passengers on Chorley Road in Swinton when he fell asleep. Tube drivers, just like bus drivers, have to work stupid hours. For tube drivers, some of their shifts begin at 4 a.m. and finish at 1 p.m. When it comes to days off, often they're split up rather than having, 2 days off in a row. Now, I've worked shifts, right? It's horrible and you never feel rested. Condensing the working hours, giving drivers more time off means they can recuperate. It's in all of our interests, by the way. It's for the safety of the commuters. But the government is trying to divide the workers and the commuters, as they often do. They, along with the media, tell you these greedy workers are happily disrupting your day for their own benefit. This is a divide and rule tactic. The government doesn't give a toss about commuters, and if they did, then they would take their safety seriously. Now, you'll hear pundits suddenly concerned about nurses and doctors. They'll say, well, nurses are overworked, so they're tired and they don't get the sort of wage drivers get. How is this fair? For example, Katie Allslop said, in a hospital, just listening to a nurse discuss his very difficult journey to work this morning. Perhaps one of the striking tube drivers might want to do a job swap for a day. The same Kirsty Allsop that said, you could buy a house if you just cancelled your Netflix sub. She's obviously so concerned about the working class. But let me ask, is it the RMT's fault that nurses are paid like shit? Is it their fault that they are overworked? Would nurses' pay and conditions improve if the RMT called off the strikes? The answer to all of that is no. The problem is the boss is paying them. People like Allsop are suddenly concerned about healthcare workers until they go on strike and then they attack them. Ask yourself this question. If there are mass disruptions due to strikes, doesn't that show that these workers are incredibly important and add social value? TfL contributes £50 million a year in economic activity. Having drivers take people to and from work or shopping or whatever, that has a multiplier effect. This is despite the fact that there are 2,000 less workers than before the pandemic. So they're stretched thin and they're really not asking for much, but simply for more rest, which is good for the worker and good for the commuter. So if you are disrupted, don't be angry at the RMT. Be angry at the government who can afford it. Now, a lot of the media have been saying, why should they work less and get paid more? And my question is, why not? Tell me why people shouldn't have more leisure time, why workers shouldn't be richer. I would love to hear it. I mean, when was the last time the media talked about CEO pay? Some earn millions a year. They'll get pay rises not based on productivity. If a CEO died, no one would notice. But if workers don't turn up, you have disruptions. So why are the bosses compensated far more when they offer far less social value? Don't let the corporate media tell you we shouldn't demand more. In the 1930s, economist John Maynard Keynes predicted that by now we would be working 15-hour weeks. Yet the media are crying at the RMT because they want a 32-hour week. Our expectations have seriously been lowered. Mainstream economists were making these predictions, but it's now seen as radical today. Shouldn't life be getting easier and better, not worse? So the final segment, why we need unions. You've heard some arguments as to why we need them, but this part is going to be more general rather than talking specifically about these strikes. Over the last 45 years, there has been a massive transfer of wealth from the working and middle class to the top 1%. Despite technological advancement, the richer are getting richer and the poorer are getting poorer. The government and corporations do not care about the working class. We have no one defending us except for unions. We wouldn't have a middle class without them. The gains the workers have made were not just handed down to us, they were fought for. The 40-hour week, weekend, labour regulation, sick pay, holiday pay, the unions fought for them. Even if you're not in a union today, you have those rights, so you can thank unions for that. Now, one might say, well, these are great, but the unions have gone too far. And I say, big business has gone too far. We've all heard stories such as Amazon workers pissing in bottles, people having heart attacks on shift. These are the type of sectors that don't really have strong unions. Now, I've worked many different jobs in many different sectors. Hospitality and retail have next to zero union representation. These sectors are low paid, no benefits, and terrible shifts. Now, an old colleague of mine, she worked in retail for nearly 3 decades. She told me about the decline in the quality of these jobs. She told me that retail workers used to work 9 till 5, extra pay if you have to work later, extra pay on weekends. Today, none of that exists. Now it's working between 9 a.m. and 9 or 10 p.m., no extra on weekends, no full-time jobs but either 0 hours or small contracts. Once upon a time, you could have a fairly decent job in retail. Now it's just precarious work. Now, I used to work at Argos, right? It was my first job. They used to offer time and a half on a Sunday. Then they removed it. Why? No unions. It's a race to the bottom. Now, the tactic from the media is to try and speak to low-paid workers and tell you that you should be angry that train drivers are earning £80,000 a year and they're moaning, which ironically, that's literally the politics of envy. But do you want to know why these sectors are high paid? It's because they're in a union. Instead of getting angry at them, we need to learn from them. Our union density is at an all-time low. During what many describe as the golden era of Britain, at least economically, people had good paying jobs with good benefits, and the unions were strong. That was until Thatcher, who despised the working class and attacked the very thing that we needed the most, unions. Now, we live in a so-called free market economy. We are told this is good. Remove restrictions from companies. Let them pay whatever they want. The market will sort it out. Soon, companies will be fighting over workers. They'll be offering loads of money. In reality, it's a race to the bottom. But of course, those that pushed free market capitalism, they can't admit they're wrong, can they? So now they said, well, it's immigration. The market isn't responding in the way that this should. Therefore, it must be immigrants coming over, taking low-paid jobs, meaning companies have an endless supply of labour. The big problem, of course, is that the wealth gap was increasing way before the 90s, when we had a period of higher immigration. Wages were already declining. The reason is not because of immigrants. It's because under a free market, workers don't have a bargaining chip. Now, if we don't go to work, we have no money. No money, no shelter, no food. So you can't withhold your labour because you will starve to death. We are being coerced into work. And bosses know that. They don't need to pay well because sooner or later, you need a job to survive. You'll come crawling back. Now, we have a welfare state, but for decades, it has been slashed. For this very reason, if we have a strong welfare state that is fit for purpose, workers have a bargaining chip. They can force businesses to offer better contracts because people can hold out for something decent. So without a functioning welfare state, how do we get good contracts? Unions. Unions should be for everyone, including migrant workers. The answer is always unions. My main point here is that if you're watching, statistically speaking, you are unlikely to be in a union. But don't allow yourself to be divided between other workers. If we have far stronger unions in this country across all sectors, your pay, you watching, your pay and conditions would be better. Taking something away from someone else does not improve your life. So even if you're not in a union, you should always back them. Always back the strikes because they are the last line of defense for workers in this country. We are sprinting towards an oligarchy. The few at the top, the billionaires, are owning everything and they're selling it back to us. Our freedoms are being taken away. Reducing inequality isn't about being jealous of the rich, but it's understanding that money equals power. It's the power we need to be worried about. Society is being destroyed by the oligarchy. Now, if you want a house or if you want to start up a business, this is becoming harder because wealth hoarders are buying up all the assets and they're getting richer off of it, making us poorer. So in order to save our economy, to save this country, we cannot allow this level of inequality to go on. And one of the biggest tools of reducing the wealth gap is unions. Remember that we have live shows 3 times per week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 p.m. discussing the latest political stories. We are trying to go full-time and grow this channel. You can support us by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly via Patreon, or there is another link to a one-off donation. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. Remember to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.